Jade's shoes were already off before she realized the apartment wasn't hers. She had worked 16 hours straight. Her feet hurt in the specific way that made her question every life decision that had led to nursing. She had taken the elevator to the 8th floor, pushed open the door, unlocked, which she assumed was her own exhausted mistake, dropped her bag, opened the fridge, and stood there staring into it for a full 10 seconds before something registered. This was not her hot sauce. She turned around slowly. Same layout as her apartment, same building, wrong unit. And sitting in the armchair across the dark living room, completely still, watching her with eyes that gave absolutely nothing away, was a man. Jade grabbed the nearest object, a vase, heavy, expensive looking, and held it like she had every intention of using it. "Who are you?" she said, "and why are you sitting in the dark like a serial killer?" The man didn't move, didn't speak, and then the light from the open fridge caught the dark stains spreading slowly across the left side of his shirt. He was bleeding. Jade's grip on the vase loosened before her brain approved it. The nurse instinct, the one that had never once in her life let her walk past someone in pain, took over completely. "How bad is it?" she said. "Leave," he said. His voice was low, controlled. The voice of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Jade set the vase down and crossed the room. "I need light," she said, "and whatever you have that passes for a first aid kit." I said leave, and I said I need light. She crouched beside the armchair and looked at the wound with the focused calm of someone who had seen far worse on a quiet Tuesday. "You've lost significant blood. This needs to be cleaned and dressed right now, or you're going to have a much bigger problem than whatever got you here." She looked up at him. "Bathroom cabinet?" He looked at her for a long moment. Then he pointed. "If you are new here, subscribe right now, because this story is just getting started, and you do not want to miss what happens next." She worked quickly, cleaning, dressing, assessing with steady hands and a running commentary under her breath about laceration depth and infection risk. He watched her face the entire time, focused, unperformed, completely unbothered by his silence or his apartment or the fact that it was 1 a.m. and she had just walked into a stranger's home. "I'm Jade," she said, tying off the bandage. "I live 1 floor up. Your door was unlocked." "Seo-jin," he said. "Just Seo-jin? For now." She nodded like that was a perfectly reasonable answer. Then she stood up, washed her hands, opened his fridge again, and started making him food. He stared at her back. "What are you doing?" "You lost blood," she said. "You need to eat. Do you have eggs?" "I don't need." "Do you have eggs, Seo-jin?" He told her where the eggs were. They talked until sunrise. Not about the wound, not about how he got it. She didn't push, and he didn't explain, and somehow the space around those two things filled up with everything else. She told him about Atlanta, about her grandmother being sick for 3 years, and the nurses being the only ones who actually showed up every single day, and how that was the moment she knew. About coming to Seoul on a 2-year contract that her mother called a crisis, and she called the best decision of her life. He listened with the full, undivided attention of someone who had forgotten what it felt like to hear a person speak without agenda. He asked questions, careful ones, the kind that said more about him than her. What did she miss most about home? What surprised her most about this city? Did she ever regret staying? "Never," she said. "Not once." She looked at him across the quiet kitchen. "Your turn. Tell me something true. Nothing about the complicated business. Something real." He was quiet for a long moment. "I haven't slept properly in 4 years," he said. Like the words surprised him on the way out. Jade looked at him with the attention of someone who understood what that kind of exhaustion actually cost. "What keeps you up?" "Everything," he said. "The weight of it." "Did you choose it?" she asked. "Whatever it is that's heavy, did you choose to carry it?" He held her gaze. "Once, a long time ago. Would you choose it again?" He didn't answer. and somehow that was the most honest thing he had said all night. By 6 a.m., the city was waking up outside his windows. Jade stood, stretched, and looked at him across the apartment. This silent, bleeding, unexpectedly honest stranger who had let her feed him eggs and talked until the sky changed color. "Change the dressing tonight," she said. "I left everything in your bathroom cabinet." "Thank you," he said. The words came out slightly unfamiliar, like a phrase he knew but rarely used. She picked up her bag, then stopped at the door. "Whatever weight you're carrying, just Seo-jin," she said quietly. "I hope it's worth 4 years of sleep." She left. He sat in the armchair for a long time after the door closed and felt something he had no name for. Like a room he had forgotten existed, had been briefly, unexpectedly lit. He told himself he would not look for her. He found her within 48 hours. He told himself it was security. She had seen his wound. She knew his face. She was a variable. He had Min run the background check. Jade Washington, 29, nurse at Seoul International Hospital. No connections. No risk. He should have left it there. He showed up at the hospital on her lunch break instead. She came through the staff entrance and found him leaning against a black car with the contained stillness of a man attempting casual for the first time in his life. She stopped, looked at him. "You changed the dressing. You told me to. I didn't expect you to come find me." "I wanted to thank you," he said, properly. "You could have sent flowers." "I don't send flowers." "No." She looked at him with that direct attention he still had no defense against. "I didn't think so." She checked her watch. "I have 40 minutes. There's a bibimbap place around the corner. You can thank me over lunch." He followed her. He kept following her for 2 weeks. Coffee near the hospital, a walk through the park on her day off, a dinner where he arrived first and was already seated when she walked in, and something about watching her cross a room toward him did something to his chest that he had no framework for. He noticed he was looking for her in every room before she arrived. He noticed he was telling her things in the dark of restaurants that he had never said out loud to anyone. And then Cora called. Jade's best friend had been quietly researching the name Kwon Seo-jin since Jade first mentioned him, and what she found made her hands shake. She read Jade 3 headlines over the phone, 2 criminal investigation pieces, a name connected to half the underground activity in Seoul for the past decade. Jade sat with her phone in her hand for a long time after the call. That evening, Seo-jin came to her door, the right apartment, with food from a restaurant she had mentioned once in passing 2 weeks ago. He had remembered. Of course he had remembered. She let him in, set the food out, sat across from him. "Kwon Seo-jin," she said quietly. "I know who you are." The room changed temperature. He looked at her steadily. "How long?" "A few hours." And I need you to look me in the eye and answer one question honestly." She held his gaze. "Are you the kind of man I should be afraid of?" The silence was long, full. "By most definitions," he said. "Yes." "By yours?" He didn't look away. "Never. Not you. Never." Jade breathed slowly. Then she pushed his food toward him. "Then eat," she said. "And don't lie to me. About anything. That's my only rule." He looked at her across the table. This woman who had walked into the wrong apartment and picked up a vase and made him eggs and asked him questions nobody had ever thought to ask. This woman who had just heard the truth about who he was and pushed his food toward him anyway. "That," he said quietly, "is the one rule I can keep." And the city moved outside his windows, loud and indifferent and full of a million doors both right and wrong. While inside that apartment, over cooling food and the kind of honesty that changes people permanently, Kwon Seo-jin made the first decision in 15 years that had nothing to do with power and everything to do with choice. He chose her, not the arrangement, not the strategy, not the careful calculation of what she could cost him. Her. Jade Washington, who had walked into the wrong apartment, seen him bleeding in the dark, and stayed anyway, not out of fearlessness, but out of something deeper and quieter and far more dangerous than fear. She had seen him, the actual him, and she hadn't looked away. He reached across the table. She looked down at his hand, then up at his face. Then she put her hand in his with the quiet certainty of someone who had already made her own decision and was simply waiting for him to catch up. Outside, Seoul kept moving, loud, alive, relentless. Inside, for the first time in 4 years, Kwon Seo-jin felt the weight lift, not disappear, not vanish, just shared. Held by 2 people instead of 1, and somehow that made all the difference.